Right there. On the left, I guess. Probably right there.
Where do we buy tickets?
Up the hill on the left.
You gotta pay extra there?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, sorry.
Party food.
There you go.
Don't be snippy. Thank you. Okay, thank you. Next tour is what? Probably just throughout the. It's probably through the ramparts and everything, and then also up to over in that direction. It's probably this whole facility, I would imagine.
All the way.
Mm-hmm. You want to do a picture?
Yeah. Oh, Mom.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Thank you.
Right back at you.
Come on.
Yeah, of course, yeah. As long as you don't point at me.
Stable for you.
Keep going down. She tried to take ownership of it after that. Right down at the bottom, it's going to start.
What's going to happen?
The tour starts. So basically, the financial district's right around there. Yeah, it's pretty popular. Huh? I guess so. 12, 105?
Yes. What?
It's by the second arch, and he's going to stop at the
I don't really know why I'm putting it away. It makes sense. Pretty much. But I mean, I think that the end game will be over there. Probably.
Over there at the tower.
Yeah, just from the looks of it. You aren't coming all the way over here. Everything's saying London Tower, and you're not going
And then
around.
that's why I know. I'm trying to put it together.
Come on down this way, guys. If you're waiting for a guided tour, come on down.
He called her out.
Oh, no.
He called you out.
Any little ones, if you can't see, feel free to stop the flag. Okay. Creepy. Good afternoon and welcome to Her Majesty's Royal Palace and Fortress, the Tower of London, a World Heritage Site no less. My name is Clive and I'm one of the 37 yeoman warders and work here at the Tower. So some of you might have heard of that saying, the English name is Castle. Well, this really is you're all very welcome here today from wherever you're from. Right, the first described tour is going to take about an hour. We're going to do around the Tower. I'll point at some historic buildings and tell you about their history. Everybody happy with that? Good. Okay then, our story really begins way back in the year 1066. William the Conqueror, defeated the Anglo-Saxons. Harold, thank you sir, there you go. King Harold at the back. William was crowned King William I of England on Christmas Day of that year. But he had to continue to fight his newly conquered subjects for some 12 years or so, as they didn't take too kindly to Norman domination. Well, William spent that time looking for somewhere to impress, overall, and dominate the citizens of London. So he chose the site, a tactical site, just inside the eastern city of London, where once an old Roman fort stood. And it was from here, in the year 1078, that he'd authorised the building of his first royal palace and fortress in England. And today, ladies and gentlemen, we refer to that as the White Tower. Now the White Tower is situated just over there, behind those buildings. Not much point in looking yet, guys, it is behind those buildings. But of course, we're going to get a much better view once we move inside the fortress. Now over the next 200 years or so, successive monarchs continue to add to the defences. The inner defensive wall, containing 13 smaller towers, was completed in around 1220. This outer wall here was completed in 1280 and contained a further 6 towers, all of which face south to defend against attacks coming from up the river. Now another part of our defensive system here at the Tower, ladies and gentlemen, was of course this moat or ditch, which used to be filled with water. It was dug during the reign of King Edward I. It's 120 feet wide and when fully excavated was 15 feet deeper than you see it today. And it was designed to use the tidal flow of the River Thames. So twice a day the river would flow into and around the moat to keep it clean, picking up all the rubbish, excrement, food, animal carcasses, unwanted kids and anything else that would find itself in this moat. And this moat really was quite dirty, ladies and gentlemen. The Tower toilets, well, they used to empty straight into it. And there was probably about 2,500 people living inside the Tower during those times, all of them adding to the contents of this moat at least once a day. But that was almost insignificant in a way, because so were the wide drains of Shoreditch and Houndsditch and the City of London all joining this moat. So this moat really was quite dirty. But it didn't matter, did it? Because twice a day, in comes the river, picks it all up, takes it out to sea, and then dumps it somewhere on the coast of France. A perfect piece of military engineering, I think we would all agree. Ooh, do we have any French here today? Bonjour! We do apologise. Now, folks, if that story were true, which of course it's not, then the French would have got their own back on it. Because our amazing self-cleaning system, it failed, okay, making this the largest cesspit in Europe. And it didn't just fail for a couple of days or weeks or something like that. It failed over a period of 500 years. When, in 1843, the then Constable of the Tower, the Duke of Wellington, asked permission from Queen Victoria to have this moat drained. Permission was granted immediately, and the Duke had it filled with sand and shingle to the height that you see today. He put it into use as an exercise area and parade ground for his soldiers of the Tower garrison. Now, since then we've had sheep grazing down here, cows grazing down here. During the Second World War, it was a great vegetable patch, helping to produce vegetables going towards the war effort. And they do say that this ground is very fertile. Anyway, right, so it's the first royal palace and fortress of its kind to be built in England. But over the years, the Tower of London's been used for many things. It's been a storehouse for the crown jewels and royal regalia. which is still safely stored here to this day, has been since 1303. It was, of course, a citadel to command and defend the city of London. This place was also an armoury for the storage of warlike stores and provisions. So, swords, axes, musket balls, cannonballs, gunpowder, all that sort of stuff you needed for war, but it was kept here at the tower and ready to go. It was also a royal menagerie or zoo, wherein the royal collection of exotic animals and beasts were held. So between about 1230 all the way through to 1835, along with everything else, it was a zoo. We had lions in here, tigers, bears, polar bears, elephants, snakes, wolves, you name it, it was all going on inside the tower, along with everything else. We had lions at the tower, for example, for 600 years. Well, in 1835, around about then, enough was enough. The whole place stank. Some people have been attacked, some people have been killed. So they put them into boxes, crates, shipped them across the Regent's Park to help form up London Zoo, which is one of the oldest zoos in the world. Now, last but by no means least, this must rank as one of this country's most important or most famous prison complexes. Bless you. Thinking of prisoners, anybody from Australia here? Wow, welcome home, guys. Okay, welcome back. Right, guys, speaking of prisoners, please look up onto that hill just for a moment. Up there, so where all those trees are, on the other side of that road, near those trees, is a place called Trinity Green. And that stands in an area known as Tower Hill, the site of many executions between the 14th and 18th centuries. Now, over the years, no less than 75 men of noble birth. So I'm not talking about common people like you and I. I'm talking about people with titles to lose their heads up there by means of mockery. The first victim was Simon Sudbury, and he was Archbishop of Canterbury. He was dragged out of the tower at the hands of peasants in 1381. Taken across here, dragged up that hill, being picked and beaten all the way to the top. Once they got him up there, he was brutally beheaded. All of that just because he was attempting to introduce poll tax, a form of taxation. Well, Margaret Thatcher, God bless her, our old Prime Minister, she tried to introduce poll tax in this country. We had rioting on the streets for about a year, but we never cut her head off. Oh no. Well, I think we were all too scared of her, to be quite honest. Anyway, 7 years later, in 1388, we had our first legal execution up there on Tower Hill, that of Sir Simon Burley. And by a remarkable coincidence, the last victim in 1747 was another Simon Fraser, the Lord Lumis, an 80-year-old Scottish lord who supported the second Jacobite. Right then, guys, what I want you to do now, I think, is pause for a moment and try to imagine the scene up there on a day of execution. Thousands would have gathered around the raised platform, the scaffold, to watch proceedings. The prisoner, having delivered his final speech and said his prayers, would place himself down with his neck resting on a block of post. He would give a word or signal. The executioner would then bring down his hand, hopefully getting his victim with one stroke. The executioner would then pick up that severed and still bleeding head and hold it aloft for all to see. He would then proclaim, "Behold the head of a traitor! So die all traitors! God save the king!" And the crowd would go wild and cheer. Is that it, folks? This really was the best bit. The head was off. The kids were happy. Everyone was having a good day out. Right then, the crowd would then go berserk and cheer again. A little bit louder this time, folks. That's better. Okay, that head can be impaled on a pike and be carried by a soldier through the streets of London. So down East Cheap Street, down Lower Thames Street, past the medieval Tesco's, on its way to London Bridge. And London Bridge, ladies and gentlemen, is that way. And in those days, it's the only bridge across the River Thames. Now those heads will be left displayed above the gateway entrance to the city as a sign of the fate that awaited all who feed traitors. So heads up there on London Bridge. Now this bit's important, guys. That headless corpse up there, I'm pointing the wrong way, the headless corpse up there will then be taken down and placed into a small handcart and almost always brought back into the Tower of London, where it will be quickly buried in an unmarked grave, a traitor's grave inside the chapel wall of St. Peter ad Vincula. And I'll show you that place when we get to the end. Okay, so what we're going to be doing now, folks, is pretty much following the route of that blood-soaked cart as it makes its way back through the tower. Yes. Resembling if you headed up there, yes. Right guys, we're just about to go underneath the archway over there. Before we do so, can I just point something out? As you go under there, please look up and notice the spikes of the medieval drop gate. It weighs over 1.5 tons and dates from 1326. I do urge you not to hang around under that drop gate as we go through though, because the rope that holds it up there also dates from the same year. And look out for the 3 circular holes drilled through the stonework above our heads. These are known as murder holes and were probably used by the defenders of the Bywood Tower for dousing out the fires of potential attackers, tipping hot fluids on potential attackers, but more importantly and perhaps even daily, used by the defenders of that tower for emptying out their waste buckets into a cart as it went beneath that arch. So if you are looking up, watch out for drips and keep your mouths shut. Yes. Right guys, follow me here and we'll go through the oldest one out of all of that.
ini jelek je ya. For example, we want all the gold and silver bullion inside the tower. The buildings down there that house the mint, and they now serve as homes for the Sherman warders and our family. So that is in effect a residential street. It goes down there in a big horseshoe shape right the way around the tower, and then joins back on the end of this lane here today at the far side of the tower. I used to live just up there. See that top row of windows? Number 2 Mint Street. I would love to invite you all in for a cup of tea or something stronger. You're not one or two of you. The other might move them on the other side of the tower. But somebody very famous did used to live and work up there. His name was Sir Isaac Newton. If you don't know or can't remember, he was a famous British inventor and he invented gravity. One of our better inventions. So Isaac Newton was master of the mint here for 28 years. So he used to live and work just down this street here. Actually guys, whilst we're talking about where people live, I just have a quick show of hands. How many of you folks knew before you came here today that all of the Sherman warders lived inside the tower with our families? Not many. How many of you didn't know? And how many of you don't actually give a damn where we live? Anyway, right. Okay, guys, if you look over there, you can see that tall, narrow archway. Known as the Sally Port, all royal entrance.
Beyond which was a small drawbridge leading out to the princess and directly down to the deck. Rather than travelling on the packed narrow street, along the river, climb alongside those stairs and with little difficulty gain access to the tower. Now, those gates in there are original. They date back more than 700 years. And it was at those gates that King Henry VIII so lovingly greeted his new bride, his second bride, Queen Anne Boleyn. He met her over there by the archway, took her by the hand, right, said to her, I promise to love you, cherish you, the rest of your life. Poor Anne was fated, as many of us know, to return to the tower some 3 years later, for a very different reason and through a very different day. We'll talk about Queen Anne Boleyn's demise in a little while. But for now, you stands the bell tower. So named because of that small white box on the top, which I don't know if you can all see. In fact, if you can see, okay, back down that way. But inside that box, it contains the oldest surviving perfume. It sounds an alarm. That will be the signal for the gates. We know we've had some very famous prisoners inside these 2 cells. A man of all seasons, Sir Thomas More, one-time Lord Chancellor of England, was in the lower chamber for refusing to accept King Henry VIII as head of the Church of England. At the same time, and for the same reason, John Fisher, Bishop of Rochester, was held in the upper chamber, known as the Strong Room. Well, both of these men were to suffer terribly, but they could not be persuaded to abandon their belief, and finally were taken out onto Tower Hill for public beheading. 400 years later, in 1935, both of those men were now another famous prisoner to be held up there was the young Princess her half-sister, Queen Mary Tudor, Bloody Mary, Elizabeth was implicated in the Sir Thomas Wyatt rebellion against the Queen's plans to marry Queen Anne. Unfortunately, Elizabeth was proven innocent and banished for a time to Woodstock Palace. But after just 4 years, Elizabeth was to return to the tower to prepare and this would turn out to be one of her last visits here to the tower during her long reign of nearly 40 years. Basically, Elizabeth, so we're talking about Queen Elizabeth I now, was petrified of the Tower of London. After all, her mother, Queen Anne Boleyn, was executed. She spent time up there in that bell tower thinking that she was going to go to she held off the Scottish, she held off the French, and she sank the Spanish Armada. All those ships effectively, she bankrupted Spain overnight and removed what was at the time a massive problem. So I think she did that. Right then guys, who else was in here? Well, James Scott, Duke of Monmouth. He's also in the power. After the death of his father in 1685, this handsome and popular young man persuaded to stake his claim to the throne. The group of his uncle James II, being a known Roman Catholic. Well, to press home his claim, he landed the west country of England and marched inland, gathering popular support in what is now known as the Monmouth Rebellion. Well, that revolt was crushed at the Battle of Sedgemoor on the 6th of July 1685. But the leader, James Scott, managed to escape the battlefield and evade capture for about a week. Condemned to death in his absence, there was no need for a trial. So 3 days later, he was taken from here up onto Tower Hill. Now this would turn out to be one of the bloodiest executions ever to take place in England. The notorious executioner, Jack Ketch, a man well associated with John. Now, Jack Ketch was a part-time butcher. He was a part-time executioner. But he was a full-time drunk. This never was. Very well at all, oh no. And on the day in question, he brought all of his skills together. He turned on the day explanation about it, there's a caution on the phone to London to explain himself. I'm not sure if it's a good idea to torment or even unnerve your executioner before he attempts to take the head off. As the story goes, after the first 5 cats, James Scott actually jumps up from the top off the top of his head. He's now a bit missing out in agony, and once again challenges all words to man. Back down on the block he went. After 2 or 3 more blows of the axe, still punching. Jack Hex, the executioner, down his axe. I cannot continue. My heart is not in it. Well, the sheriffs of London, judging the reaction from the crowd, there was about 110,000 people. You better pick up that axe and do it through. They didn't want to see that handsome man being butchered in the air. So he picked up the axe. After a total of about 5 blows, still with the punching and burning James Scott, Jack put down his axe. He finally silenced James and completed the task with that. Not a good way to go, I think it would have been. Now they're smiling, folks, it's not good. Okay, that is not the interesting part of this story, I have to say. We messed up executions left, right and centre. That was the law. The interesting bit was they then brought both his head and body back into the tower. They were sewn together once more and then buried in the chapel. About 24 hours later. Why did they do that? You must be thinking. Well, it sort of made sense, but in the day, they realised this eldest son of a king, they never had his portrait. Get the head, get the body. They sewed it back together and they painted his portrait. Yes, mad. Now you can see that portrait. Go down to the National Portrait Gallery in Trafalgar Square. It's free to enter and it's fantastic in there. Say to him, I would like to see the portrait of James Scott, the Duke of Monmouth. They are going to smile, ladies and gentlemen. For many years, the creators, the staff in there have said, this is the portrait, this is the one. We've got it, and they are very proud of it. Some of the creators down there have said, no, it can't be him. Look at his hair, look at his head, it's all the wrong angles. Hardly surprised, I'm guessing. It doesn't really matter. You're looking for the portrait where he's lacking a bit of colour in his Okay, I love about the bell tower, and it's Christmas. Get ready for this, folks. It's not going to be good, but we're going to be ready. Come on, folks.
He kept trying to get his head off.
Come on round, guys, all the way round. Try and get somewhere where you can see inside Traitor's Gate. There's not too many things there, so you should be able to do it. Little bit of have a look over the side. Come on round this side. Still room on the other. Fell in there, your head's loaded. Right, not as you sit on there. You should be alright, don't hold it. Right then, guys, welcome to the most famous, or should I say infamous gate in the world, Traitor's Gate. Now this gate was built on the orders of King Edward I as he required a safer, more usable entrance into the tower. Now rather than travelling on those packed, narrow, twisting streets of London out there where convoys could be attacked, stores stolen and the prisoners set free, he decided to use the River Thames as a highway. So he had a hole not through this outer defensive wall, so at high tide, boats could pass through the gate and unload their cargoes in safety. Therefore, this gate was originally known as the Watergate. Any Americans here today?
Yes.
In fact, let's have a big yee-haw for the Americans. Let's have a big yee-haw, guys. Come on. Excellent. Right, Americans, Watergate. We can ask first. All right. And more importantly than that, our Watergate down there is over 600 years old, and we're pretty sure it doesn't leak as much as your Watergate. Anyway, right then. So I said it was known as the Watergate. How then did it become known as Traitor's Gate? Well, this occurred during the Tudor period, due to the large number of alleged traitors to enter this mighty fortress through those twin gates. Amongst them, no less than 4 queens of England. Sir Elton John, Stephen Fry, Queen Anne Boleyn, Queen Catherine Howard, Lady Jane Grey, uncrowned queen of only 9 days, and Princess Elizabeth Tudor, later Queen Elizabeth I. High dignitaries of the church were no exception. Archbishop Cranmer, Bishops Latimer and Ridley were brought into the tower during the reign of Queen Mary Tudor, Bloody Mary. These 3 pious men were later taken to Oxford and burned at the stake for heresy. Those and many more poor unfortunate souls would have travelled down the River Thames from their trials at London's Guildhall and the Palace of Westminster, passed through those gates, landed at those steps to be met by the yeoman jailer with his axe and an escort of yeoman warders. They would then be taken through the Bloody Tower archway behind you to the cells to await whatever fate had in store. Unfortunately, for many of these people, it was just going to be a short journey back out of the tower to their place of execution. Right, folks, on that cheerful note, I did mention the Bloody Tower, didn't I? Look, there it is, directly above that archway. You see the 2 staggered windows there? That is the Bloody Tower. Now, it used to be a garden tower, as it overlooked and gave access to the Lieutenant's Garden on the outside of that wall. Its name changed to the Tower of Blood, or Bloody Tower, during the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, to commemorate the many tragedies enacted within. Now, surely the most tragic of these tragedies would be the alleged murder of the 2 boy princes in 1483. King Edward V and his younger brother Richard, Duke of York, aged 12 and 9 respectively, were allegedly smothered to death or stabbed to death with a dagger whilst living in the Bloody Tower under the protection of their uncle, Richard, Duke of Gloucester. Now the spooky thing was that if anything happened to those 2 boys up there, he would become king, King Richard III. Well, something did happen to those 2 boys. He declared that they were bastards, that they were illegitimate, and then they went missing for a very long time. Now, we don't exactly know who murdered those 2 small boys. It's hotly debated in this country to this very day. And when I say hotly debated, I mean debated with fists. It is a very passionate storyline. It's in the newspapers in this country somewhere every single week, without fail. The storylines go off left, right and centre, but the one we believe in, the storyline that we follow, is that those 2 little boys' bodies were bundled down the stairs leading from the Bloody Tower into the Wakefield Tower and quickly buried under a pile of stones. The next day they were moved by an unknown priest and buried in a secret plot under some stairs on the south side of the White Tower. There they remained for 191 years, until workmen, during the reign of King Charles II, discovered a chest. On opening up that chest, no, not gold, but the bones of 2 small boys. Well, experts of the day declared these were the missing princes, and so, on orders from the king, they were taken from here down to Westminster Abbey and interred in Innocents' Corner, where they remain to this. Okay, guys, I could talk about the Bloody Tower for a long time. That has got a lot of history, that one. It's not all good either. But we are running out of time, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop there. But you can go in there and have a look. All right, and I'll show you how to do that in a little while. You can also go along this south wall here, just use those stairs. Who's seen that film Braveheart? Mel Gibson, William Wallace, Longshanks, the King of England, okay? Longshanks was Edward I, him and his father built this wall, all right? Called Longshanks because he had long legs. Also had a ferocious temper and nicknamed Hammer of the Scots. But go up there, you'll go through his bedchambers, you'll see where he used to pray. You can look at great views of the river, great views of Tower Bridge. You then join to the east wall, look over the side of that and you'll see where we all live as you go around the tower. At the far end of the east wall, you can also see a carport if you look over. That's where we used to be a rifle range. during the First and Second World Wars, and that's where we executed the German spies. You then join the North Wall. Walk along that and you'll come to the Royal Beast Exhibition. The kids like it in there. It explains why we had all these animals here at the tower. Mums and dads, there's even a cage in the middle of that. Put the kids in, walk off. All right. Anyway, we've run out of time, folks. If you make a little gap here, I'll come through it and I will take you to the oldest part of the tower. So follow me. Thank you.
So Marvin in the cage.
Too bad you couldn't sit down somewhere.
Okay.
You could go back to
Probably up here.
Starbucks.
Up here,
What?
up top.
We come and find you at some point.
We might come find you at some point.
She could sit there and we could get
Yeah, that's probably best.
Or really it would be better if she stayed in Starbucks and one of those sofas.
No, but they might ask her to leave after a while, so.
If she had something sitting there, get her croissant and water. You can roam around because there's a lot of little things.
Or do you want to sit up there?
So this is going to end at the London Bridge, right?
No, it's going to end. He said we're running out of time, so I would imagine. And then probably rather soon. You want to sit down here or sit up there? Coming for you, Marty. She said, look at these birds. Okay, I'm coming up. She could sit up here, and she'd be able to look around a little more. You sit over there. You sit over here. Over there. Sit over here, Mom. Go ahead, have a seat. Right there.
First of all,
Some guards changing.
pathway down to the end on the left. That's the entrance to the bloody tower. These guys there. Over there in the corner, you can see that black and white tube building. That is the Queen's Tower. And yes, ladies and gentlemen, that is the Queen's Tower. only on the condition that he leave the country. He did. He crossed the Atlantic to find his famous great colony called. You got it. It's the sea. These are called London Plain. Once you get a London Plain sea in your throat, you can really good. I'm telling you. But anyway, right. So that was William Penn. One of the last prisoners to be held here at the town was a man called Rudolf Hess. He was second in command of Nazi Germany. Now, not a lot of people know this, but during the Second World War, if ever we caught hold of Adolf Hitler, and we were determined to catch him, he was coming here to the tower. But more specifically than that, he was going to go in the Queen's house. We didn't catch Adolf Hitler, did we? You all know that. We did get his second in command, Rudolf Hess. And we put him inside there for 4 days in May 1941. Something was happening around here, guys, in May 1941. What was it? Anybody? Blitz. Yeah, you've got it. We'd had the bombings and all that sort of stuff. And we were coping with that, but then the Blitz kicked in, and this really was a massive step up. It went on for about 8 months. Excuse me. The bombing of all the major cities and ports right across Great Britain. But what did it mean for London? At its worst, at its peak, 57 consecutive days or nights designed to break the morale of the British people and soften us all up in preparation for Operation Sea Lion, the mainland invasion of Great Britain by Nazi Germany. Well, the Blitz failed. They didn't work, but nevertheless, we needed him alive. This was important, so we had to move him out of there, put him in the countryside. Got the information we wanted from him, and after the war we took him back to Germany, put him through his war crimes tribunal in Nuremberg, where he was sentenced to life imprisonment in Spandau Prison, Berlin. He was found dead in his cell in 1987, believed to have committed suicide. And I do say believe, because if you read military history, read up about him, he was a fascinating person, okay, and there's some doubt about how. Right, so moving on a bit, the doors on either side of the Queen's House with the light blue paint on them. That's more homes for the Australian borders on our family. They're very nice. That building there, over there with a big arch window in the middle of it, that is the Beecham Tower. Please go in there and have a look. Because behind that big arch window there used to be a station. There's a lot of graffiti on the walls of prisoners inside there. Some of that stuff's really quite fancy. You'll see graffiti all over the tower for prisoners, but it's particularly concentrated there. Directly behind me, can you see a blue door? Yeah, that's the home of our tower doctor. He looks after us. So at night time, if there's a problem, we can go and knock on his door and have a talk to him about it. Failing that, pop next door and talk to the tower chaplain, because that's where he lives. And then you've got the beautiful Chapel Ward of St Peter Abinka just there, where we're going to go very shortly to finish this. Right across the back there of the square there, you've got the Waterloo Dock. In 1845 was a barracks for 1,000 soldiers. But more importantly, ladies and gentlemen, in there where you're going to find the crown jewel and royal regalia. Entrance is beneath the block. Now folks, when you go inside, you are going to see some of the best rubies, diamonds, sapphires, sparkling things, bling that you've seen in your whole life, but you're probably ever going to see again. I'll give you one example of a diamond that we know, the star of the Age. And that diamond weighs in at 530.2 carats. Right, so I don't actually have any clue what a carat really is. But gentlemen, if you do want to know, just look at the ladies amongst you and I'm sure they will tell you all about it. All I know is it's about that big, so it's the size of this foot. And it's the largest cut diamond in the world. It's absolutely fantastic. Now, be careful though, because there is a warning here. Ladies, you pop out of that jewel house in the broad light of day here in London, please do not be tempted to compare that shit on your finger with what is in those cabinets and then start looking at your other half. Oh no, you might just realise a use. Right, look, this one out. Excuse me while I right, okay. Down there in this way, right. There's a building there, Operation Stores. He's going there now. 1685. I think it's still going 1578 and took nearly 20 years to complete under the direction of Gundolf Beck. It stands at about 90 feet tall. The walls taper in thickness from 15 feet to 11 feet at the top, and on each corner you can see there are turrets. 3 are square and 1 is round. And it's in that round one up there where the first wall of was established. Now, all of these buildings here were over 500 years. And then you've got their main building top floor. On the floor below was a banqueting hall, council chamber, accommodation for knights and their ladies, and the chapel. The lowest floor was 6 servants. There was another floor, but parts of the low ground and all that sort of stuff was kept. The parts of this floor had a far more as a dungeon or torture chamber. Yeah, here the rack, scavenger's daughter, hanging in chains, and many other instruments of torture would have been used in this floor. And that really was a dark, hateful smelling place, lightened only by the torturer's hand. There is absolutely no way that any screams or cries would have been heard outside of those doors. Okay? You'll be glad to hear it's brightly lit down there and very little trace of its former use remains. It is in fact a gift shop. Torturous prices, I hear you shout. Yes. Alright then, we're coming on to it. Now I said there were some pictures on this side, didn't I? Well, the first victim in 1536 was Queen Anne Boleyn, and she was tried and found guilty on trumped-up charges of adultery, incest, treason, and just about anything else they could throw at her. Basically, she couldn't produce a son and heir for the king, and she couldn't divorce. Divorce was not an option. Well, Anne was executed at her own request, not by the axe, which she was greatly, but in the French manner with a two-handed sword. Now, we didn't used to execute people with swords in those days. We used the axe, so we had to send for the executioner. And he came across from Calais in France. And on the day of the execution, he set up on the scaffold, concealing his sword underneath some straw at the back. And at a given point, during the execution process, he signalled to his English assistant, who said something along the lines of, "Bring me my sword." Well, at that point there, Anne was momentarily distracted in prayer. And then the Frenchman, quite typically you might say, took out that sword from behind and cut her head off with one clean stroke. A merciful act, I think you would all agree. He then did what he was supposed to do, and he picked up that head and showed it to the crowd, who could quite probably have been stood exactly where you guys were. Only the crowd on that day all took one step back, and they all gasped together. Yes, so lips and eyes were still moving in prayer some 20 seconds or so after her head was removed. So quick and clean was that cut. Gentlemen, another warning here, I'm afraid, even in death. When I get the last word. 5 years later, in 1541, it was the turn of Margaret, Countess of Salisbury. Now this turn neither was she to be afforded the luxury of a trial. She was, however, the mother of Reginald Pole, and it was the cardinal that the king would dearly have loved to have got his hands on. However, the cardinal was safe in Rome, preaching against Henry. As Henry couldn't get the son, he therefore took the mother and had her executed in his place. Now this brave 17-year-old last of the Plantagenet family and Henry's own auntie refused to lay her head on the block, declaring proudly, "That is for traitors, and I am not such." Now at that point then she said to have pitched up her skirt and started to run off down that way towards the Queen's house. Well, the execution was a bit quicker than she was. He put in a decent tap, and down she went, and so they say 11 strokes of the axe later, that job was done. Not good. Following year, in 1542, the axe unusually was to fall twice on the same day. This time the victims were Queen Catherine Howard and her lady in waiting. Well, Queen Catherine Howard, I don't know if many of you have heard, but she was said to have been a beautiful young lady. And she wasn't about to make the same mistake as Queen Anne Boleyn. Oh no, she was trying very hard to have a son and heir for the king. She was trying really hard. Unfortunately, it wasn't with the king. It was with a gentleman called Thomas Culpeper and one or two others if the stories are correct, and she paid the price for that on Tower Bridge. Jane Boleyn, her Viscountess of Watching, her lady in waiting, she was executed immediately afterwards, and her crime was knowing of her mistress's adultery, but neglected to tell the king. Right. We are getting close on timers here, folks, so I'll finish up with one more execution, otherwise it's going to get a little bit samey. And this one really was the tragic, innocent, 16-year-old uncrowned queen of only 9 days, Lady Jane Grey. And this girl was just a born in a struggle for. After the death of her cousin, King Edward VI, she was declared queen and placed on the throne by ambitious relatives. She ruled in the White Tower there for just 9 days, until the rightful heir, Mary Tudor, Bloody Mary, regained that throne by the well, Lady Jane and her young husband, the 19-year-old Lord Guildford Dudley, after their trials for treason at London's Guildhall, returned here to the Tower in December. Lady Jane was imprisoned just over there at number 5 Tower Green, so second Bluedoor down, we think. And from the first floor window of our prison watched as her husband, Lord Guildford Dudley, was taken from the beaches up onto Tower Hill for execution. A short while later, she witnessed his headless body returned to handcuff the barrel of the which is where they all ended up. And if that wasn't how she left this forfeit, she also saw the carpets preparing a scaffold on this very side for her own execution later on that day, the 12th of February. A tragic day in English history. Actually, folks, it doesn't matter if it was executed on the hill or down here on Tower Green, which your body almost certainly found itself open there, which is where we're going to go next, guys. Before we do so, can I just point out, it is very much a Christian place of worship. To that end, in fact, you see that when you open the doors. To that end, gentlemen, if you are wearing a hat and your religion permits you to do so, move it. There's no eating, drinking or smoking in there. Actually, I don't mind if you have a drink or something in there, especially if you've got one of those things stuck in your throat. But please don't leave your rubbish inside there, or the car driver there's going to beat me up later on. No photography of any kind allowed in the chapel, so please don't take photographs. And can you just check for me now that your mobile telephones and your cell phones are switched off, or indeed turn them onto silent. And our last point before we go in, your step, it's only about that tall, it's about that long, and it's on the entrance of the chapel. Tricking people up for hundreds of years. You guys will be no exception. 4 of you are going to fall over that step on the way in. That's how it works. Ladies, don't panic. If you should do it, I will attempt to back you with my one strong arm. I'm going to be busy with the ladies. Watch out for that step. Right, guys, he'll let you in. Last one in traditionally doesn't read it, so don't hang around. Right, see you inside.
Or like, boop, boop. No, she broke out of... He's doing something.
She's doing the word puzzle.
Word search.
Trying them out.
She really didn't want to do all the work, huh?
To me, they still early. I wouldn't mind going by Piccadilly.
Bond Street.
Where all that stuff was.
Bond Street.
And go in the store you're talking about.
Bond Street.
I thought it was Oxford. That's where I thought we could go to next.
Yeah, it's fine.
I had to get her something to eat though.
Very true.
That fish and chips maybe, I don't know. Or maybe when we're walking around.
No, not fish and chips. Yeah, that's probably it. She's looking. She's looking, but I don't know. We'll see what she wants. Oh, that's good. Shot.
Make sure your phones and cameras are turned off now, folks, please, before you go to church. Even if you get married in this church, royal chapel. Going on that side door, the front of the right.
Let's just sit there. Just like that. I don't know where to go.
Right, guys, if you want to take a seat, if you're on the back here and you can't see, you can't get a seat, feel free to stand up and you can just walk around the back as well. Right, ladies and gentlemen, we're not going to be here for very long, actually. We're going to do about 2 minutes. And the reason for that is there are 2. First of all, the next side of the hall, which is probably around this, is straight on, which is a bit of a time frame. But more importantly,